Hi guys, it's DrayYoutube584. For my first video of 2025, I'll be going through each month of 2024 and go over which day was my favorite and which was my least favorite, starting with January and working my way to December. I've done the same kind of video for 2023, and now I'm doing it with 2024 now that the year is over. It's always nice to reflect on memories of your best days that made each year special. And while I had some rough days in 2024, they usually came with some kind of learning experience. Without further ado, let's get started. Personally, this year had a rough start for me. January ended up being a hard month for me to get through. There's one day, however, that stands out in a good way. My best day wasn't really because of an activity that I did, but because of an accomplishment I made at school that morning. It was the 26th. The main thing I struggled with in January 2024 was that I had an infatuation with a girl at my school, and I never felt it quite like that before, and it became an obsessive thought. But on this day, I had the courage to give her a compliment about her appearance in the hallway. It took some courage to say it, but she appreciated what I said. Not to mention, I helped myself to release some of the pressure I was having. But the feeling of having a big crush on someone wasn't easy overall, and on one day, it felt like one thing after another. It was on the 5th, my least favorite day of the month. I had previously mentioned on my 2023 version of this video that this was a bad day. It was a really bad day, and I have a lot to say about it. The moment I woke up that morning, my neck was in pain because I slept on it wrong, which wasn't a good start. I felt it all day at school. Eventually, I didn't even want to stay seated because of the pain, and the feelings I was having about my crush certainly didn't help. On this day in particular, I saw her in the hallway 3 times after realizing the previous day that she made herself look even more stunning by applying blatant makeup to her face. I was extremely overwhelmed by it, and that combined with my neck pains was causing me to have a teenage meltdown inside. I honestly couldn't help my feelings when I saw my crush change her appearance like that, because I easily have sensory overloads. In the evening, I was stressing about how I felt like I pushed my crush away from me because I told her the same thing too many times, and I even started to panic while I was trying to sleep because of it. What made the evening even more stressful was that all while I was having those thoughts and my neck still felt uncomfortable, everything seemed to go wrong when I had my little cousin over as usual when I sleep at my paternal grandparents' house. For example, he wanted to change the names of our avatars on the Xbox 360. This seemed like rocket science trying to do it, which deeply frustrated me. Everything was just too much for me at that point. I also felt like I needed space because of the stress I was experiencing, but I didn't want to kick him out of my room and upset him. Overall, I would say this is my least favorite day of all of 2024 because there was so much that went wrong, and it was always something from start to finish. This makes it the 3rd consecutive year my least favorite day was in January. At least I got through it, and the next day was a lot better. My favorite day of February 2024 was a day you might have heard about on this channel before. It was the 15th. On this day, I went to Broadway Theater at Pittman to see a dueling piano show of Billy Joel and Elton John with my mom, my stepdad John, and my Aunt Jeannie. My Aunt Jeannie eventually said this was her favorite memory she had with me in my most recent Family Question video, and I even showed 2 clips from the show in my top 10 Elton John songs video. They looked and played like the real singers, which made it feel like we were seeing the actual people. It was especially cool seeing the Elton John guy perform, since I've never actually seen the real him in concert like I did with Billy Joel in 2023. We were also seated all the way in the back, which gave us the luxury of being able to stand up and dance to the songs without blocking anyone's view. To make this day even better, my class at school went on a yearly bowling trip, and I had a nice time as always. While that day was a really good day in February, I have yet to mention that February ended up being tough like January was, mostly for the same reason, and there were several of those days. But if I had to pick which was my least favorite, I'd go with the day I felt crushed. No pun intended. It was the 9th. If you've watched my rant on crushes that I uploaded a month later, this story may sound familiar to some of you. This day was basically January 26th gone wrong. Like on that day, I was building courage to say something to my crush, but it was something bigger this time. I felt this knot in my stomach all morning leading up to it, and when it was finally the time, it didn't work out. I saw my crush fail to acknowledge me because she was talking to another boy enthusiastically after already seeing them talk on days prior. Talk about bad timing. It was painful and discouraging for me to watch. I need a lot of help to calm down from multiple people, and the feeling stung for the rest of the day. I also felt like I wasted my chance at talking to her, which made it even harder. As unpleasant as this day was to experience, it noticeably helped to ease the feelings I was having before by making me realize she probably just thought of me as a friend at most, and that was also likely the case with her and the other boy. So it was a learning experience. I even talked to a trusted friend on the phone the next day about what happened the previous day for some more advice. My favorite day of March was a special day that I can associate with my senior year of high school. It was the 27th. I got nominated with People's Choice Awards at my school by my CST counselor. I've always had a good relationship with him. The event took place in the auditorium, and the nominators called the students up individually in alphabetical order. We even got a book with every student's name and the message they received from the staff member that nominated them. This is a day that I consider to be my best day of the month, more because of the memory of it rather than the experience itself. It was rewarding, literally. But you know what day wasn't so rewarding? The second day of this month. When I first woke up that morning, I was having intrusive, taboo thoughts that left me feeling disgusted with myself. I was upset because I felt like my mind was corrupted. I needed to call my dad on the phone to talk about it with him because I was most comfortable talking with him about it. When I got off the phone with him, I slowly started to regret something I said on the phone with him, mostly because I was overthinking how it would affect me mentally. So after breakfast, I started panicking in my room. I had to call my dad on the phone a second time, and I felt like I was being clingy to him at that point. The good thing to come out of that was he decided to give me my church pastor's number, and I talked to him on the phone. Fortunately, hearing his voice helped me to feel calm for the rest of the day. Now I realize that we may have thoughts we regret sometimes, but it's part of being human. April 2024. For those of you who don't know, this was the month I had a Disney vacation with my mom and my stepdad John, while my senior class was having their senior trip there. I made an overview video where I talked about each day of that vacation in the summer. For the best day, I'm going to go with the day we went to Disney's Epcot, which was the 25th. In case you're wondering which days we went to the other Disney parks, we went to Magic Kingdom on the 23rd and Hollywood Studios on the 26th. For those of you who haven't seen my overview video on this vacation, the only theme park in Disney we haven't gone to yet was Animal Kingdom. We're talking about going there when we go back to Disney. This was without a doubt my favorite day of all of 2024 and one of my best days of all time. The first experience of going through all the different countries felt like I was actually going around the world. As we were walking through the other countries, we heard some accents and even a couple other languages. We also tried different foods from around the world, which my mom and I were looking forward to since we have expanded palates. We went on 6 different rides that day. My favorite one was called Soarin', which was an awesome ride because it makes you feel like you're flying throughout the world. The rest of the rides are really cool as well. In the middle of the day, we went back to our resort to take a break. Then we went back at night for the fireworks show, which was also impressive. Just when I thought this day couldn't get better, as we were walking out, I saw 2 students from my gym class at school who were boyfriend and girlfriend with each other. I saw some of my other friends at school at Disney. What made this the most exciting was how excited they were to see I was there. While every day of our vacation was great, this one was nothing short of fantastic, and we are definitely going back again someday. A month can't be totally perfect, though. I still had a least favorite day of April 2024, and that was the 9th. After school that day, I was at my paternal grandparents' house, and my little cousin was there like usual. I went to a dentist appointment, and when I came back, he was still there. He wanted to hang out with me in my room as usual before his dad picked him up, but I was acting selfishly because I wanted to go right outside to enjoy the nice weather we were having that day. He brought all of his plushies into the room, but I was refusing to play with him, which was out of character for me. My grandparents were upset because of my selfish behavior. After all, he was only going to be there for another 15 to 20 minutes, and then I could go outside. At least I know now that I was in the wrong, and I learned from it. Not sure if you guys remember what I did on my best day of May 2022 and 2023, but in May 2024, I did the same thing. I had my annual school formal at Paris Caters. This year, it happened on the 16th. As before, I was really looking forward to it, and I had a nice time there. I even invited my friend Derek there, who was one of the students there 2 years before. I also got a picture with the 2 students at my school I mentioned on my best day of the previous month. It may not have been as exciting as the first 2 years, mainly because I already did it twice, but it was made for an enjoyable experience and a good memory. I had a little bit of a rough afternoon at school on this day, but I certainly turned my day around. And unlike the year before, I didn't have any trouble the rest of the night after the formal, which is something I mentioned briefly in my November 2023 video titled My Former Daily System. My least favorite day this month was the day that occurred a week later, the 23rd. You know those days where you're in a sour mood and every little thing seems to set you off? That's how I was feeling at school that day. Part of the reason was that the weather was dark and gloomy, and I only got 5 hours of sleep the previous night. What set me off in school was in my first class of the day, which was science. My classmates were being unkind to each other, and that made me upset. Then for the rest of the morning, I was getting annoyed by every minor thing. What didn't help was that, especially during the middle portion of 2024, I kept fighting this intrusive thought about something I missed out in my sophomore year because I was ignorant to it during that year. I was possibly thinking about it on this day as well. At least I had a better rest of the night when the morning hours were over. Now here is June 2024, the month of my high school graduation. You may be guessing my best day of the month was my graduation day, which was the 14th. Well, I wish it was. Here's the thing. I had an incident during my graduation. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to get myself upset. But it felt like a punch to the gut how it happened during my high school graduation. If it was something mildly upsetting, I wouldn't let it stick in my memory of a happy moment. But this was something that devastated me to the point of nearly crying in front of everyone. Instead, I'm going to give my best day to the 27th. I was in the summer program I go to every year, and we went on a trip to the Ocean City Boardwalk. I always enjoy it when we go there. We stopped inside a pizza place for lunch. After school, I went swimming in the pool and played wiffle ball with my little cousin. This means, out of the first 6 months in 2024, 4 of my best days of the month happened to be on a Thursday. As much as I wish the day of my graduation was the best day, the one that ended up being the best was still enjoyable. However, I don't want to consider my graduation my least favorite day of the month because it was the day of my graduation. I would consider it to be my ultimate mixed bag of a day. I'm going to pick the day before my graduation as my least favorite, and that day was the 13th. This was one of my many days where the foul language people were using upset me due to my sensory issues. It was my second day doing my graduation practice, and the students were swearing like sailors. Most of it was just in casual conversation or to emphasize the hot weather. However, one student was eventually swearing in a nasty and aggressive way towards other students with a smile on her face. Hearing it being used in such a manner because she thought it was cool is what finally made me lose my cool. I had an inappropriate reaction, and I had to take a walk. I'm aware that I shouldn't let other people's words and actions affect me, but it's the way I was born, and it's hard for me to overcome it. My best day of July 2024 was the 30th. My dad and I took a day trip to the same boardwalk I went to the previous month, but this time we also went to the beach and the theme park there. I believe this is the first time I did all three parts of Ocean City in the same day: the beach, the boardwalk, and the theme park. It was kind of like when I went there with just my dad in August 2022. Like when I went with my summer program the previous month, we stopped at a pizza place, only it was a different restaurant. We also stopped and got some fudge before coming back home. Another thing we did at the boardwalk was miniature golf. But the first thing we did when we got to Ocean City was the beach. And I went in the ocean too, in case you're wondering. And we went to the theme park there for a little bit towards the end. We left just a little earlier than we planned since my dad got sunburned on the beach, but it was nice having a day out with him. My least favorite day of July was the 2nd. On that day, I had a rough morning in my summer program because I heard some sad news. The staff members told us that a student who used to go to one of the high schools in the district 2 years prior passed away from a health condition. Some of my friends were crying, which was unpleasant to watch. I couldn't believe the news I just heard. Even though I didn't really know the student, hearing that he passed at such a young age was shocking, and hearing how upset my friends were made it harder. He was only 20 years old. I ended up writing a letter to his family, which a few of the staff members suggested to me. I also went home early through parental pickup. I'll admit, I took it a little too personal since the student I was hearing about was a stranger to me, but it was hard to process everything. My prayers still go out to him and anyone who was close with him. As I was saying before, the day of my graduation unfortunately didn't go as expected, but my best day of August 2024 helped to make up for it. It was the 31st, the day of my graduation party, which took place at my mom's house. She had stuff set up for my graduation, and I had a lot of family members come over for it. I also invited two of my friends over. One thing that made this party memorable was that I was constantly doing something and socializing with the people there. I played baseball on the Wii with my little cousin when I first got there. Then I was playing pool in the basement with my friend Derek, with my music playlist on the TV. Eventually, my other friend that I invited came over with the name Daquan. I showed him around my house, and then I was shooting basketball hoops with him outside. I also recorded my family question there that I uploaded 5 days later, where I had everyone tell me their favorite memory they had with me for a graduation special question. This was also the day before my stepdad John's birthday, so he brought out a cake outside to sing to him. Overall, this was a nice way to celebrate my graduation. My least favorite day of August was the 4th. During dinner time on that day, I had a severe incident at a family member's house. I prefer not to mention whose house it was due to the context of the incident surrounding it. We ordered Chinese food for dinner, and I made the mistake of putting my food right when we got it directly on their granite countertop. What I didn't realize was that they didn't want the heat from the food to put a crack in the granite. The problem was that I can have a hard time handling being corrected a certain way, so I ended up talking back to them with a snarky tone of voice. They were livid with me after I talked to them like that, and their anger slowly turned to bitter, hurt feelings. The incident that occurred caused me to have a huge mental breakdown and one of the worst panic attacks I had ever experienced. Luckily, I had a better rest of the night after dinner, and they eventually forgave me for the comment I made, but this is what I would consider to be the most emotionally distressing experience I endured in 2024. This has taught me that even if I disagree with someone in the moment, I have to watch what I say, because my words can have a profound impact. My favorite day of September 2024 was the 23rd. At the beginning of the previous month, I started to really get into watching Major League Baseball, and I began sitting down to watch whenever my team, the Philadelphia Phillies, played a game. So I suggested we go to watch one of their games live at their stadium by the end of the baseball season. So I ended up going with my mom and John on this day. We saw them play against the Chicago Cubs. This was a big game, because if they won this game, they would clinch the best record in their division. It was a fun experience. We got to see them hit 2 home runs during the game. At the end, they were winning 6-2, and they needed just one more out to win. It was a stressful end of the game. The batter was at 0 balls and 2 strikes, and he still got 4 balls and walked to first base. And we were like, ugh. Luckily, the next batter hit a fly ball, and it was caught for the final out, and the Phillies won. We were hoping for the Phillies to win the World Series this year, but unfortunately, they got eliminated in the quarterfinals round when they got destroyed against the New York Mets. But I still appreciate getting to see them right before the postseason. My least favorite day of the month happened later in the week, and it was the 27th. On this day, I came home from school, and I was at my paternal grandparents' house again. I was expecting my little cousin to come over as usual on weekends I stay over there to hang out with me that night. But my grandmother was telling me he might not stay over that night because they were having the idea I might have been trying to avoid him, since I decided to go to my other grandmother's house the day before while he was there and I was supposed to be there. It made me upset that they were thinking that, so I was only going over to my other grandmother's to hang out the day before. While I was already stressing about that, my little cousin and his mom arrived to talk about something with my grandmother, and I thought he was already staying over, when normally it wouldn't be for an hour or 2 after school, and I would take a rest until then. So I had an inappropriate reaction and got an attitude with them. So everyone was upset with me for my self-centered response, and one of them considered not even bringing him over anymore. This really hurt my feelings because I had been willing to spend time with him, and after one little incident that occurred, I was getting 0 credit for it. I was even crying in my room, and it took me at least an hour to overcome the emotional pain I was suffering. Out of all the days in this video, this is the one that honestly bothers me the most to look back at. At least I had a better evening, and this day is in the past now. I also learned from this day how sometimes we may have slip-ups when we think we don't have any problems with something anymore. For those of you who don't know, October is the month of my birthday, and I'd say my best day of it was my birthday. That was the 10th. I turned 19 on that day. That evening, I went bowling with my dad, my paternal grandparents, my little cousin, and his mom. At one point, we were basically the only bowlers in the entire alley. The reason why is because there were a group of league bowlers coming in at night, and we just got there in time. By the way, it was my little cousin's first time bowling, and he told me that he had fun, and now he wants to go bowling for his next birthday. I think it's cool we were able to do it on the actual day of my birthday, since a lot of times, it's not until a few days after my birthday that we do something to celebrate it. My least favorite day of October happened to be the 2nd, making it the 3rd month this year. My least favorite day was on the 2nd. Now that I graduated high school, I'm in this job training program for students who are neurodivergent. What happened on this day was that I was supposed to go to Goodwill with a job coach and one of my job interns, but our job site got canceled in the last minute because our bus driver couldn't make it. So I had to stay at the high school where our program is headquartered. What made it more annoying was that I didn't bring my own lunch because I was expecting for us to stop at a pizza place near Goodwill. So I had to get something at the cafeteria at the school. Something like that happening so suddenly threw off my day. This should be a reminder that you never know when something could unexpectedly change. My favorite day of November 2024 was the 23rd. On this day, I saw another tribute band in Broadway Theater of Pittman. This time, it was a tribute of Queen. Unlike the previous time, we got seats all the way up to the second row in the front, and it was an amazing view. I went with my stepdad and my Aunt Jeannie again, but this time I also invited Derek, the one I was talking about earlier, since my mom was out in Tennessee with her friends. Anyways, we had an amazing time at the show. For the first half, they played all their 70s hits, and for the second half, they played all their 80s hits. At the end, they played 4 more songs for their encore. The guy who played Queen singer Freddie Mercury was full of energy and very interactive with the audience. In my most recent song video with the title Today, I included a picture we took with the singer at the end of the show, and used a web browser to make it composed of puzzle pieces. I did this for my verse with the line, "Life has puzzle pieces that make up our time." On February 21st of this year, we'll be going to a tribute show with my Uncle Brian that has the rock band AC/DC playing, and we're all looking forward to that. My least favorite day in November was the 6th. To be fair, out of all my least favorite days in this video, this one was the easiest to get through. On this day, I felt like I had ants in my pants because I had a therapy session every week at the time, and I was thinking about how I might not make it there on time due to a few factors. And it ended up being tough that week. I've been thinking about that in some other weeks as well recently, but I was particularly thinking about it on that day. Sometimes by force of habit, I worry about things I shouldn't really worry about. But again, it may have been my least favorite day of the month due to the flaw I mentioned, but it wasn't that bad of a day. My favorite day of December 2024 shouldn't be much of a surprise for anyone. It was Christmas Day, the 25th. I started the day off at my dad's house, and I opened up my gifts at his house, which included 2 Xbox games, 2 posters, and a pair of funny slippers. Then we went to his parents who have dinner there. For dessert, we stopped at his other set of parents' house, which are his dad and his stepmom. I don't see them regularly like I do with his mom and stepdad, so it was nice to talk to them again. I then went to my mom's house where I opened up the gifts I got there at night. Over there, I got some jerseys and posters for all my sports teams, as I got myself to enjoy watching sports other than baseball, as I previously mentioned, over time. I even got tickets to see the 76ers and Flyers, which is our basketball and hockey team respectively. The former game we are actually going to the day after this video was uploaded, and the latter we'll be going to on March 11th. I also wore the jersey I got for the Eagles, our football team, in my most recent YouTube video. The one other experience thing I got was a trip to Busch Gardens, which is an amusement park in Virginia we'll be going back to this spring. I did also give my mom and my stepdad John a gift that I bought when I went on a trip to the mall with my job training program, which included a candle and an Eagles mug, which are both meant for both of them, but I gave one to each of them to open. Another present my mom received from me was a ring that I picked out at the mall when I went with John, which had Minnie Mouse on it, since we went to Disney back in April. This was a memorable Christmas overall. My least favorite day of the month actually had a good memory to come out of it as well. It was the 20th. This day had a good start, as my job training group went on a trip to a little music place where they played songs on a speaker as we got to play with instruments along with it. They even allowed me to play 2 of my own songs as I sang them on a microphone, which were Making the Future and Conversations. However, things started to go downhill in the afternoon. Remember how I said earlier, my job training program is headquartered at a high school in our district? While we were standing outside and waiting for our buses, One of the high school students started to cry very loudly and aggressively, and from what I heard, it's because she thought she lost her phone. Hearing students cry in such a harsh manner was common at my elementary school. It often resulted in me having a sensory meltdown. So this felt like a type of throwback that I never wanted to relive. I got intensely annoyed with the crying I was hearing, and I responded in a vocally immature way. I apologized to one of my job coaches, and I eventually explained to them my sensitivity to noisy crying. I tried to move past the incident, but me being set off from it threw off my mood, which caused me to have another moment that night over something I normally handle better. I feel what happened at school might have even had a negative impact on my mood that weekend. During the weekend, I started having bitter feelings dwelling on that one thing whenever something else was stressing me out. While I'm aware of how the incident during the day didn't take away from the enjoyable moment I had, the thing is that sometimes a day can have an unfortunate turn of events, and it made me have a hard day overall in this case. And that concludes every month in 2024. Now it's 2025. I think my number one resolution for this new year is to stay out of my own head so I can be in a better mood overall. It may take some practice, but I know it'll come a long way. And as I was saying before, I have some days to look forward to this year. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Bye guys.